the whole model is designed to break. It's just that, unfortunately, in the last 50 years, they've been patching this sinking ship. Eventually, they're going to run out of duct tape, and it'll just sink.
Once a transaction is hashed into a link, that's a few links back in the chain, it's firmly etched into the global history. Satoshi Nakamoto. Welcome back to What is Your Bitcoin Story with your host Gigi, and today we have another remarkable guest with us. Muaawiyah Tucker is an accomplished educator and serial entrepreneur who has made significant contributions in the field of Islamic law, Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and blockchain technology. Since 2006, Muaawiyah has been passionately teaching Arabic and Islamic studies, and over the years, he has seamlessly integrated his expertise into the realm of computing, Bitcoin, and blockchain. His unique approach focuses on the Islamic perspective, making him a pioneering figure in the developing system that bridges traditional knowledge with cutting-edge technology. Join us as we explore Muaawiyah's journey, the challenges he's faced, and the innovative projects he's spearheaded. Whether you're a seasoned Bitcoin enthusiast or new to the world of Bitcoin, this is an episode promising to be enlightening and inspiring. So let's get started and discover Muaawiyah Tucker's Bitcoin story. Welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thanks for having me. Nice to be here.
It's a pleasure. So I guess we'll kick it off like all previous 50 shows. Where and how does your Bitcoin journey begin?
Okay, excellent. So I think everyone has their own little reasons why they get involved in Bitcoin. And for me, it had nothing to do with price action or speculation or anything like that. I guess you could say my journey in Bitcoin began before I even knew what Bitcoin was. I think in 2000, I've always been deep down a kind of gold bug. I think to be honest, I think everyone really is. I mean, not at various levels, but I was always kind of this philosophy that real money is gold. Everyone has that same ideology, real money is gold. But I think in 2010, 11, 12, that kind of amplified itself. The idea of gold and how money should be, and then coupled with that, I had the view that if only we had returned to the good old days of gold, all our problems would be solved. You know, kind of rhetoric. And then I think after 2012, when gold kind of peaked at that moment for the next 10 years, and after that it was a decline for, you could say, it spanned 10 years. But from that moment, my interest kind of waned a bit, as one does. And I guess you can almost say 2010, 11, 12 was kind of the gold FOMO. Everyone was talking about gold. Gold's going to the moon. The dollar's going to collapse, whatever. And I think once it peaked at 2012, kind of everyone's bubble got kind of deflated, and people went on with their lives. And so did I. The ideology is still there, but the hype was less, you could say. Until I would say about 2017. It was before that, but I don't have many memories of before that. I only have evidence, but I don't have memories. But 2017, I think I tried to integrate a payment platform onto my website. I think it was using PayPal. And I don't know, I can't remember what the problem was. But
terrible idea, by the way.
Yeah, it was headache. It was so much headache, and I was like, but why is it so difficult to get payment on a website? And then I said to myself, you know what? There has to be better. Let me try that Bitcoin thing. So Bitcoin is already in my head, but as if most people, I never really did anything about it. I just knew that there was internet money and that it was a better form of money, but that was as far as it went. I did find one day when I was scrummaging through my photos on my phone a screen recording of Al Jazeera news report about Bitcoin. It was like an intro to Bitcoin in 2016. So I'd known about it before 2017, but I don't remember exactly how or when. But anyway, so I thought, let me try and integrate Bitcoin payment. So I integrated the payment on my website. I tried it out, simulating a transaction. So I went to Coinbase, bought some Bitcoin, and I bought one of my courses on my website because at the time I was teaching Arabic and Islamic studies, and it worked. I was like, great, this is how it should be. You sign up for a course, you send payment, you get confirmation, it's done. I don't have to get permission from anyone. I don't have to ask anyone anything. It's just as it should have been.
No secret fees, no exchanging, withdrawal fees, nothing.
That's it. Again, life went on. I moved on. I think that was in June time. I remember it was about June time. And then in August, I just checked my website. Have I got any payments? I mean, I doubt anyone will pay in Bitcoin, but let me just check. You never know. And when I checked, I saw that there was more money in the wallet than when I first had. So I was thinking, did someone just buy something? And then I realized, no, it's the same transaction, but it's worth more. And that got my interest. Why is it worth more? I mean, how did that happen? And then that's kind of where the research actually began. What is Bitcoin? How does it work? How does it function? And ironically, the bigger revelation wasn't actually Bitcoin. It was how banking works. Because I was forced to analyze, as everyone, before you can understand what Bitcoin is, you kind of need to know what money is. And that really pushed me down the rabbit hole. A rabbit hole that I wasn't pushed down when I was in the in the gold club. So gold never really makes you think that deeply, because gold is a given. We know gold is money, and we stop there. That's it. Gold is money. Move on. With Bitcoin, however, you kind of need to ask the question, what is money? I mean, because you want to know, is Bitcoin even money? And to answer that question, you have to ask, what is money? And that kind of pushes you down that rabbit hole. So I think maybe if a person never knew that gold existed, for example, and they were told this is money, maybe that would have pushed them. But because we've grown up accepting what it is, then we don't question these things. The same thing with fiat. We know that fiat buys things, and that's about it. We don't ask why. It just is what it is. I guess only when you're confronted with this magic internet money that you have to kind of ask the question, okay, why is it money? And how can someone launch code and then all of a sudden we have currency? So that's kind of led me down that rabbit hole. And the bigger shocker, which wasn't to do with Bitcoin, was basically how interwoven interest and what we call in Islam riba is within the banking system and within money. It's not just as many people think of it. You go to the bank, you get a loan, you pay interest. Actually, the interest is, even if you don't take a loan, the issuance of the currency, all of it is deeply woven within it. So and then my learning just began to snowball more and more and more and more. And now here we are. I think that's like, how many years now? It's
been 7 years.
7 years. 7 years now, isn't it? Yeah,
only 7 , right?
Only 7.
But it doesn't feel that long, right, Muaawiyah?
Yeah, because when I said that just now, I thought it was 5 years, and I had to step back because last time I was asked that question, it was 5 years ago, but now it's 2 more years. So yeah, I mean, just 3 more years left, and I'll be into Bitcoin for 10 years. That's crazy.
That's a milestone. Yeah.
Am I an OG?
You are definitely an OG. Well, definitely. You might not be in the OG in the genesis, kind of in the early blocks of Bitcoin, but you're definitely an OG in building the Bitcoin parallel economy. Because the kind of, it's been 15 years that the code's been out, but now we're really seeing, things being built in it, countries adopting it, like really going full front. And I'm sure for the next 15 years, a lot of people will still be dismissing it, and they'll be getting in, beyond 2030, beyond 2040. So yeah, you are definitely still in the category of the OG. But I want to bring it back to what you mentioned about kind of this, how your Bitcoin journey started by actually learning about money and discovering kind of the root causes of money, which I think, it makes a lot of sense. It's hard. Kind of Bitcoin is this solution to a problem, but without you knowing the scale and kind of the aspects of the problem, it's hard to actually rationalize it. And, individuals in first world countries, as we call it, developed countries, they like dismiss it so easily as, just another Ponzi scheme because they don't dabble in and learn how money actually works, because you can't even blame them. Our educational system never teaches us. There is no course on money, right? In school, it's we have finance and stuff, which is all Keynesian economics instead of Austrian economics. But there's a reason for that too. But it's interesting how most people, just like in your case, they first kind of learn about the money aspect. And you shared with me when we just got in touch, you were on Safety Namus's podcast, and I referenced his book, which was my actual first Bitcoin book that I read in 2018. The Bitcoin Standard, like the first half of the book just talks about the history of money and understanding what money is. So that's definitely the right path to go forward. But now bringing in and having you on the show, which I was really looking forward to, and kind of learning more about the kind of the Islamic law and finance, because from my understanding, there is, well, you mentioned interest, but there's a whole different dynamic to traditional banking and financing. So I wanted to kind of ask you from your perspective, how does Bitcoin align with Islamic finance principles?
Yeah, so I mean, I think for me, my specific journey for Bitcoin, again, I would say is very unique in the sense that I haven't really met anyone whose journey began because of it. So, for example, you mentioned about the first world countries, how they're kind of very dismissive of Bitcoin. And the only reason I can explain that is because the fiat over there works. The fiat in London, the fiat in US, it works. I mean, there is inflation, but it's not really as bad as other countries, and you kind of get by. I mean, last couple of years has been a bit rough, but before that, it works and it does its job. But for me, so my point is, there was no what we call an Arabic, there's no da'i, there's nothing that pushes the person to learn. Whereas in a third world country, or in a developing country, or a country whose currency is not as good as the Western countries, with inflation rates 50%, double digits, triple digits sometimes, there's a reason to learn about alternatives. So that people are pushed into alternatives. It could be Bitcoin, it could be just dollars, but they're pushed into it. So me being from London, a Londoner, and being a part of a first world country, there was no real need for me to learn about alternative currencies, except because I held fiat to be inherently immoral from an Islamic perspective. So in Islam, interest-bearing loans are immoral acts. They're sinful acts. It's a major sin in Islam. So I've always wanted to escape from that system. Hence why I was a gold bug, because in my mind, gold was an escape. It was money that didn't require me to use a bank. So that's what appealed to me about Bitcoin, is that Bitcoin was, again, money that didn't require me to use a bank. I have a wallet, it's in my wallet, and that's it. There's no bank using my money to issue loans, because that was my understanding of how banks work at the time, is that banks, they use your money to issue loans. I didn't know at the time that it goes further than that. But that was my initial, what piqued my interest. And that's why I thought Bitcoin was an easy win for me. It's a way to have money outside of banks. It's a way to have money outside of PayPal. That was the whole appeal to me. And only when I looked into banking and I saw that actually the interest goes way beyond just having money in the bank. The issuance of the currency, the way the currency is used to subjugate countries, people, everything. It's a whole entire system that revolves around, I would call it financial subjugation. Literally, I mean, that's essentially what...
Simply fraud.
Yeah, it's a combination of subjugating people using money. So you're forcing people to essentially be debt slaves, number one.
Yeah.
And number two, which is even worse if you think about it, they are able to issue these currencies at zero cost. I mean, if I want to have gold, I have to work. I have to actually get a job, earn some money, and buy gold, or go to a mountain, mine ore, and get gold. There's no way to achieve the gold that doesn't require someone working for it. Whereas you can go to the bank and they type some keys on the keyboard, and There you go. You have the currency to buy the house, and then on top of that, you pay interest on that which costs nothing to produce. So it's inherently immoral, and it's inherently oppressive. Literally, that's how it was. So that was my initial motivation for Bitcoin. That's actually what kept me on this path of Bitcoin, because literally, financially speaking, and morally speaking, it's the only real alternative. Now, one could argue there are alternative coins and alternative things. Fair enough. But of all currencies, of all alternatives, there are, you'd say, trade-offs. There are questions to be answered. But when it comes to adoption, it comes to the way that Bitcoin was formed, managed, and maintained, or everything about it is the most moral currency you can have. So technically speaking, why would I go to anything else? That was the moral case for it. So back to the issue of what you asked initially about banking. So in Islam, like I mentioned to you, you're not allowed to monetize a debt. Put it speaking, basically, you're not allowed to monetize debt. You're not allowed to earn an income without, or receive income without earning it. Somehow you have to earn it. Either someone gifts it to you, or you earn it. That's essentially how you receive money. As for receiving money because you have money, that's where the immoral nature has. Just because you have the money, you have the right to have more money. And because I don't have money, I'm condemned to not have. I'm condemned to have even less by having to pay back what I don't have. I mean, you can see already that there's already an imbalance.
Of course.
In the model. Now, some may say, but when you're lending money, you're providing a service and you're getting paid for that service. A service is something you do,
Clicking a few buttons on a keyboard is not that hard.
I mean, not even that, because that's referring to issuing a loan from a bank. But even just having money, as in the whole purpose of money is to facilitate trade.
Correct.
I have money, means I have capacity, I have ability to exact my will and acquire things I want with that money. That's the purpose of it. That's what it has. I've acquired this thing that allows me to execute my will. Because I have £1 million, I can now buy £1 million worth of whatever it is. That's the purpose of money. The purpose of money isn't to acquire more ability. It's not. It's not something. It's not something like that. And on top of that, there's one interesting feature about money, which kind of ties into one of the principles in Islam, or one of the important acts of worship in Islam, which is called zakah. Zakah is a charity, 2.5% of your wealth that you give to the needy, whoever it is. Money, unlike wealth, that is in material wealth, property, cars, whatever, money does not degrade. So think of it this way. If I have a house, a home, by virtue of it being physical, I have to spend money for its upkeep. Because if I leave it, it will degrade. Yeah. If I have animals, I have to pay upkeep. They have to need feeding. If I have whatever it is, over time, it will eventually degrade, and entropy would basically eat it away. Except money. If I have gold will sit there and do nothing. It will remain being what it is. And you can almost say that zakah, or the charity that is the 2.5% zakah that is paid on your money that you have, is almost like imposing that entropy on your money. Just like you have to pay for your upkeep of the house you have to also pay some of that upkeep on the money you have, which goes towards the poor or the needy. And doesn't go towards government funding and government spending. It goes towards those who actually don't have. And also facilitates the movement of money, you could say, whatever the justification, but that's the concept. So in a nutshell, these are some of the ideas that Islam has about money. Money is a means or a medium of exchange. It has a purpose. Yeah. It's a demonstration of your will and ability to execute or get what you want. It's not a means to extract more from other people.
Mm.
If I want something from you, I have to give you something for it.
Yeah.
That's literally it is. If you look, it's ironically, if you look at Islam historically, Muslims have been a people of trade, and you go to a place and you do trade. I mean, look at Indonesia. Indonesia is the largest Muslim population or country Muslim population in the world, but Islam got there through trade. Muslims traveled there with their ships, and they just engaged in trade. So wherever you go, they have this thing about, okay, you have what I want, I have what you want. Let's do fair trade. And because of that, you find that Islam has very strict rules and principles to make sure that that trade is fair.
It's fair.
So any trade which is deemed to be unfair is unlawful. Basically what it is. So if I wanted to force you to give me money that you're not happy with, one of the conditions of a trade is that both parties are happy. So any trade which enforces on someone something, you can't do that. Hence why in Islam, things like price fixing is not allowed. Which is ironic because we have so much of it across the world. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, some of the companions came to him and said to him, "Oh Muhammad, could you fix the prices because the prices of things have gone up?"
No.
Which is interesting because that shows that even during their times, prices of things
they had inflations.
So they said, "Sa'id lana, fix the prices for us." And his response was, "Verily, it is Allah who sets the prices." And then he continued, "I don't want to go and meet anyone on a day of judgment and they have any claim on me that I oppressed them." So when you think about that I oppressed them, how would you oppress someone by fixing the prices? Because you prevented him from getting his rights. If the price of bread is X, that's what he deserves. And essentially you're saying to him, you're not gonna have what you deserve, you're gonna have less than that. I've oppressed you. So therefore that trade is an unfair trade, and price fixing was banned. Or he said it's not for him to do. And if the Prophet of Allah can't fix the prices, then what about any of us? So anyway, so that's kind of the gist that banks are inherently immoral, and they perpetrate or they exaggerate wealth gap. As you can see in Islam, we have zakah, whereby those who have money pay a small portion of that to only 2.5% to those who don't have. So you see that the gap between the rich and the poor is getting smaller because the money is filtering downwards. With interest, it's the complete opposite. Because they haven't got money,
it's from the poor to the richer.
It goes from the poor literally up to the rich. So why are we surprised that the wealth gap in the West is growing? Why is that a surprise? It's a credit-based system. That's how it was designed to happen. That's the purpose of it. The purpose of loans is to do that, exactly that. So that's why Bitcoin. I love Bitcoin. I mean, I say that in a purely platonic way. Because Bitcoin inherently has features which forces you to be moral. No one's going to give an interest-bearing loan in Bitcoin. It's ridiculous. You're happy just to get the Bitcoin you lent back. They've held all the Bitcoin for you. That's beautiful. Imagine you gave someone one Bitcoin 10 years ago as a loan, and now he's paying you back one Bitcoin. That's beautiful.
Correct.
So that's basically you can say the premise or the way in which I'll say that Muslims should view Bitcoin, because Bitcoin has the same properties of gold. It's just money. You can't get it unless you earned it. Literally, there's no way to get it unless you've mined it or you bought it off someone. That's it.
Well, proof of work, right? No pun intended. You got to put in the work to get it. It's not just another staking token where you.
It's moral. It's basically moral. That's a moral way of acquiring wealth. On the flip side, proof of stake, it's much of the same. You get money because you have money. It's a repeat of the old model.
It's a fiat 2.0.
It's a fiat 2.0. Literally, it's a fiat 2.0. And I've debated with some people saying, "Oh, why do you say? Why is your problem with Ethereum?" I'm like, well, it's just a repeat of the same old system. I mean, you might think it's a cryptocurrency because it has hashing involved and it has addresses, but put the technology aside, the basic premise is those who have money stake that money, and get more money. And it just so happens, again, back to the issue of morality, it just so happens that more than 50% of the circulating supply of Ethereum today is
It's
still the
held
same
by
pre-mine.
yeah, correct.
I
More
mean,
than 50%.
yeah, again, I want to be modest, 50%, but it's more than that. And so that's literally, how is that moral?
No way. But people like talking about the whole DeFi and what's the latest thing coming out, and
It's the
shiny
same,
features.
it's the same
But
old,
it's the same old thing.
same old.
But I'm going to bring it back to what you mentioned about fair trade, right? And I think definitely that's something that we definitely don't have in modern banking, where there's so many middle parties taking their own cut, taking time, taking I still find it insane that we're in the year of 2024 of the time of recording this episode, and it takes, if you want to do a wire transfer to another country, it takes you 3 days. It takes you over 72 hours
If it gets
for
there.
it. If it gets there, if you're lucky, right? If the mempool is not jammed, literally, literally for like a digital transaction from a ledger in your country to be updated on a ledger in a different country takes 3 days, which is insane. Like banking, like literally hasn't changed in decades, and
Yeah.
then Bitcoin comes in, and it's like this avatar compared to the dinosaur system, which is just like, I don't know, like trying to survive. And with this whole last few years, we've had this whole CBDC test pilots, and they're trying to push it in, and now slowly people are like, maybe CBDCs are not such a good idea. And and who knows what will happen with CBDCs. There's been some countries which already tried to launch it,
Yeah.
Nigeria being one of them, which
Yeah.
was a major fail, and a lot of other countries are trying to put it through. But yeah, I think essentially CBDC is just a fiat on a much worse system, where they fully got you in full control of where you can spend, what you can buy, who you can transact with. You mentioned one good thing about kind of modern slaves in debt. There's that famous meme going on online talking modern day slaves are not in chains, they're in debt, and that's
Yeah.
pretty much as it is. And it's crazy that, especially since this pandemic that we've had for the last 3-4 years, I mean post pandemic, the inflation and how much money has just been injected by simply the central banks going, oh, quantitative easing, we'll make this fake circulating supplies, but once again it goes to the riches. They make the most out of it, and then it trickles down to the poorest,
Yeah.
which need it the most. And prices have just gone through the roof. Like things have gone 3-4 times more expensive, yet people are still on the same level of income pre-pandemic. So it doesn't make sense. This, as you mentioned, Muaawiyah, that the difference between the inequality gap is getting insanely worse, and it's only a matter of time that I think that people in these first world countries will see the effects and will start thinking, how do I actually save for a better future, instead of just like slaving away 2-3 jobs just to pay my bills, which is crazy. And
I mean, one of the interesting byproducts, because like I said, once you go down the rabbit hole, you see how far it really goes. And one of the unexpected things I learned about the system and how the system is set up is that there's a saying, the path to hell is paved with good intentions. So okay, let's look at the frame. What's the frame? We are a government, and we want to help the economy. We want to help people, and they have their complaints. They have their concerns. I mean, our job as a prime minister, as a minister, as a leader, whatever, is to make things easier for people. Okay, how do we do that? Okay, one of the complaints people have is housing. That's the easiest one to demonstrate. They haven't got enough money to buy a house right now. I mean, they could work, save, and then eventually they have enough money to buy a house. But remember, my job is to make their life easier. Wouldn't it be easier if they can have the house now and just pay later on? Okay, fine. What do we do? Okay, let's incentivize the issuance of loans. Let's make it easier for people to get loans so they can buy these properties. And then, isn't that helping people have stability, Isn't helping someone to have a home, raise their children, raise a family. These are all good intentions. Okay, great. What's the reality on the ground? The reality is there's a limited number of properties, and there's a certain number of people who want the property. And if the government never did anything, only those who could afford it would buy it. So there will be a supply and there'll be a demand. Fine. And it will find its equilibrium, whatever. But now the government is stepping in to help us get property. Now you have people who are in the market who shouldn't be in the market. They can't afford property, but now they can. So essentially, you have now more demand for the same amount of supply. So over time, what happens is that property prices start to creep more and more expensive. Why? Because people can afford higher prices, because they're bidding higher and higher and higher to get the limited number of properties or houses that are available. So over time, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, when property prices are so much more higher than they used to be, now what did the government say then? Oh no, property prices are so high. Let's make it easier to get property. Let's make it even easier to get loans. So not recognizing it's higher because you were given a loan. Yeah. Because you were doing this helping out people, you've now made the situation worse. And your solution apparently is to add more fuel to the fire. So you can see that the whole system in perpetuity, it leads to one thing. And this is what I think now people are beginning to witness this firsthand. What they are doing is they are drawing the productivity of the future today. You're sucking out the value that would have been made in the future, and you're eating it today. So when we finally get to the future, we can't afford it then. So what do you have to do? The only solution is to draw even more value from the future. It's like you're digging the hole deeper and deeper and deeper. So what ends up happening is that the future generations just can't afford it. Why can't they afford it? Because previous generations have already spent it.
That's what we're seeing now.
Yep, exactly that.
Like, so Gen Zs, there's no way they can buy their own property.
There's no way. And I'm not old. Yeah, I don't feel old. I'm only 42. I mean, that's not that old. But if I look at my children today, and I think to myself, I have no idea how they would normally afford a home. I don't know how they can do that. When I was young, so in the 60s and 50s, statistically, you could have afforded a home with just 3 years of your rent. Just 3 years.
I've seen this recently, yeah.
2 to 3 years, if you worked and grinded for 2 to 3 years, you can own your home outright. Just 3 years. Today, you're looking at 30
plus.
It's about 15 years if you just grind 100%. 100. I mean, 30 years is your mortgage, but if you just worked day and night and you didn't spend any money except saving it,
pot noodles for 15 years.
Pot noodles for 15 years, living with your parents 15 years, it takes you 15 years. So now when my children are growing my age, you're looking at least 20 to 25 years of 100% working just to own your property, which basically means you won't be able to do so. And this is the key point I want to get to without going on too much about it. That is a catastrophe. Unless they change what they do or are doing, you're literally headed to a world where you will be happy and own nothing, because you cannot own anything. It's not possible. Everything will be on subscription, which is we're already seeing that now. Apps are now on subscription. Soon your car will be on subscription. Soon your home will be just rent. It's just subscription. You will not be able to survive unless you pay subscription. And the problem is that even that will become out of reach at some point. As soon, and we already see it now in London, rent is not affordable. Realistically, it's not affordable. 2-bedroom flat in London, you're looking at £2,000, £1,800. That's your wages for someone who just left university. That's it.
And you got all the bills: electricity, water, internet, food for yourself, everything.
I mean, there was one example. Peter McCormack on
yeah, of course.
He mentioned he always mentions this all the time, that he did interview one lady
Mm.
is a nurse, but still has to go to the food bank to get food.
I heard that. Yeah.
How is that? How is that fair in anyone's world?
It's crazy.
But who should we blame? Let's blame it on global warming. Let's blame it on immigrants. Let's blame it on some other thing rather than the root problem is the fiat itself. Its job is to suck the capacity, the working value of the poor and give it to the rich. That's literally what it means. There's no other explanation, no other justification. How is it in a world where people can't even afford nurses who are responsible for your health, have to go to the food bank to get food, where we have some people who have billions as their net worth? How does that add up?
And they're buying more properties, just adding to the problem. Because, looking at real estate as a safe haven, prices are going to go up. So let me buy up more properties, just to kind of park my money there. And then people can't afford housing. So it's so many things that are going against it. Now,
the thing is, the whole model is designed to break. It's just that, unfortunately, in the last 50 years, they've been patching this sinking ship. Eventually, they're going to run out of duct tape, and it'll just sink.
But here's the problem: how do you run out of duct tape when you can just keep on printing infinitely?
No, because there's a breaking point. There's one important factor which maybe they're not thinking about, maybe they're not realizing, and that is money depends upon people. Trust.
Okay, yeah, true.
You could continue printing, but at some point, people think, "Wait,
trust is broken.
This is a joke." And we're already seeing it now. We're already seeing all the TikTok and new videos. All these people who've just come to realize about central banking. They're like, "What the heck?
What the fuck's going on?"
It's already happening. It's already happening. And this is what's going to happen. You're going to have people. They're going to have fiat, and they're going to have gold or Bitcoin or other things. And eventually, over time, they're going to just migrate to what they see as a better option. This is why, in a way, I've kind of stopped evangelizing about Bitcoin. Going around and Bitcoin, because beyond sounding like a lunatic, Bitcoin really is. And again, one of the reasons why I like Bitcoin is that Bitcoin is money you choose to use. That's another feature about Bitcoin I didn't think of when I was first into Bitcoin or first got heard about Bitcoin, is that it's something you choose to use as opposed to fiat, which you're forced to use. There are many countries in the world where you actually can be punished for using other than a local currency. Yeah. What they basically mean is we're not allowing competition. We know that our currency is not great, but we're going to force you by the gun to use our currencies. Whereas, as opposed to saying, actually, our currency is as good as Bitcoin. Let's compete. Nah, we're not gonna go there. Not gonna go there. You use our currency or else.
Well, we're seeing that in Argentina now. I don't know if you saw, but President Milei, he said that kind of if you want to use Bitcoin, like go for it. And I think that should be the right way. And what you said, I fully agree. Kind of Bitcoin is this freedom of choice, medium of exchange, where you want to use it for trade, use it for trade. You want to save in it, use it for savings. Use it whichever way you want.
That's always how money has been. Money has been that which both parties actually want. It's just that we have organized governments that have powers to execute on demand. Then they can say, okay, look, you're going to have to now do what I tell you. Otherwise, I have many jails that I can put you in, and I have many officers that can enforce that. So that's the thing. Now, if I was to try and play devil's advocate and try and have good thoughts of the government, which is nothing wrong with that. You can never have good thoughts of the government. And to be honest, if we're honest with ourselves, I don't think the majority of government are malicious.
They're just in the system. They're blinded by what they're pushing, the system they're feeding.
It's just. Think of it this way. If I'm honest to myself, if someone said to me, look, here you go, here's the keys to the kingdom. You're now the Prime Minister of UK. You're now the President of the United States. You're now whoever. You could do whatever you like. You're now the leader. I would like to believe I would say, yeah, let's go Bitcoin all the way. But would I really do that? because I know how much suffering it's going to cause. I mean, I know that there are going to be lots of people who are going to lose a lot of money, and they're going to look at me saying, "You're the reason why that loan I given to someone is I can't get it back, or that house that foreclosed." The thing is, the current system we're in now. It's like what it reminds me of? It's like a train that is about to be derailed, as it's coming to the end of the track. We're going too fast to stop. But rather than acknowledge that we're going to crash, we have a party. Just cover the blinds. Don't worry about what's happening. Don't worry. Let's just have a party.
It's like with the Titanic when it was singing and they were still playing the violins and playing the music.
Fine,
so good.
That's literally what's happening. So no matter what you do, it's going to be pain. So some people just think, why should I be the guy who's going to be blamed for it? If I can patch this over for just for now, or at least roll it, or like you said, just roll it over. I can just keep on rolling it over. We just.
I've got another 2 years to go. I can sustain it for then.
or maybe another 2 years, because that's to do with a democracy where you have maybe I'm a king or whatever. I don't have the 2 years, but I do believe that this boat will keep us continue sailing. I mean, I believe that that's the majority of the situation. As long as we have central banks, as long as I can do these policies, I can fix it. I mean, isn't that why people go to university to study economics? Because they think they can fix it. That's the whole premise of these models, which is why I have a view. I'm not sure if it's a controversial view, but I have a view that there are some things you just can't fix. And I think once we actually acknowledge that there are some situations that there just isn't there isn't a right thing to do. There's only a less bad thing to do. There's not a good thing to do. It's just bad or worse. That's all we have. I think that's people need to recognize that there is no model which works in all scenarios. Maybe it works here and doesn't work there.
True. Einstein has a perfect quote. I'm sure you come across it. He said, how's the quote go? You can't fix the problems with the same mindset that basically you invented the problems in the first case. And this is what these high politicians and central bankers and these finance gurus, they're so stuck in their tunnel with a tunnel vision that they don't see anything outside. And I totally agree with what you said.
Actually, I think it's worse than that. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the videos of Rishi Sunak, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. Yeah, I've got to have respect for the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, where he was in a shop and he trying to emulate that he was doing shopping, and he actually didn't know how to tap the card to make the payment. He didn't know. There's another video where he was at a school trying to take part in the woodwork, and he didn't know how to use a hammer. These guys are unaware of life,
of reality. Yeah,
of reality. Their reality is completely different from actual reality, and that's a very interesting development of leadership. I think if you look back in the past, leaders of the past were very much aware of the world they lived in. Especially when leaders were like tribal leaders. Tribal leaders, they have business, they have life, they have wife, they have kids, they have a home, they have normal lives like everyone else.
They go through everything like everyone else. Yeah.
Yeah. So the decisions they make, it impacts them as well as the next person. Whereas today, a lot of the politicians and MPs and senators, whatnot, they're very much isolated from the world. Or worse than that, based on what we're seeing right now, they are profiting from suffering. As in, they don't mind perpetrating wars in other countries because that feeds the military-industrial complex. That feeds our exports. That feeds our industry. We have a deficit in our budget. This other countries at war. Let's give them some more weapons. Let's fund this. Let's that's the worst thing. It's not just the fact that they are detached from reality. It's that they are profiting from suffering,
from blood. No.
And that's really unfortunate if you think about it's so deep and broken, and that's why sometimes many of us might be in despair. That how could you ever fix such a thing? Our money is broken, our governments are broken, our politics is broken, our media is broken.
Relationships are broken. You're simply not even speaking to your neighbor, depending what party he chooses or what race he supports.
People don't talk to their wives, talk to their husbands. Talk to their children. Everything is broken, The only thing that seems to be working is Bitcoin.
TikTok next block.
That's the only thing that
Because
actually
you can't break it.
every single enough is the only thing that seems to continuously working. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting dynamics, interesting state of affairs. Where are things heading? Where are things going? Clearly, as things are, it's not.
They need to change.
It needs to change, and I think Bitcoin is the only. So my opinion is that Bitcoin is just a tool. This is an important point. Bitcoin is just a tool. Just like weapons, just like a knife, it can be used for good, it can be used for bad. I do believe Bitcoin has properties that facilitates morality, but you can't say Bitcoin is moral. It's just a tool. But I do believe that Bitcoin mixed with sound morals can change the world as we speak. And I think that's something we're starting to see now. Many Bitcoiners are producing videos talking about morality, talking about fairness, fair trade. I mean, I would propose that some of these discussions fall short from a religious perspective because they don't have, as my perspective, divine guidance. But at least you see people are trying to understand how could you have a fair world. I mean, we see it all the time. I mean, that's one of the things that one of the things I noticed, because obviously in my Bitcoin journey, I did also learn about other coins. I used to attend workshops, learning how to code Solana and Bitcoin. I've attended different circles. But one thing which I see with Bitcoiners, which I don't see generally with others, I mean, I'm sure it does maybe exist, but it doesn't exist as much of others, is this moral component. The idea that Bitcoin is fair money. Bitcoin is a way that someone should receive what they deserve. Bitcoin is actually a possibility of fixing problems. Whereas with Ethereum, I think you probably agree with this one, it's all about making money. Just same fiat mentality. DeFi this and yield this and put your money here and you get more. Their only concern is about just getting more fiat. I don't hear the idea of morality or helping people beyond making more money from people. I don't hear that from that camp. But I do hear it from Bitcoiners. And I think that is something that Bitcoiners are exploring, looking into it. And I do hope that they look into the Islamic ideas or Islamic concepts of morality that I believe goes hand in hand with Bitcoin. And the reason why, because Islamic finance and Islamic business or trade is firmly grounded in the gold and silver currency. As in, we have woven within our fabric the use of gold and silver as currency. So if you can imagine 1,400 years of that system working on gold and silver, we've had a long span of time developing fair methods of trade on that basis. So it makes sense, obviously, to use that which has already built a system around the use of gold and silver, as opposed to our current Western system, which is built around debt. It doesn't incentivize using gold or silver. It doesn't even. In fact, gold is a liability. Why would you use gold? Gold doesn't give you yield, as they say. I mean, I hear many people talk about that. Investors and hedge fund managers talking about gold. They say gold is a hedge against inflation, but it doesn't give you any yield because that's their mindset. Mindset is just about yield. Right. In Islam, yield is achieved through doing something. You want to make money, do something. I mean, Elon Musk, for example, I don't like the guy, but he's actually doing something.
He's doing a lot.
He's sending people to space. He's making cars. He's actually doing something. Building tunnels. I mean, let's ignore the cobalt mines in the Congo and what's happening there. But let's ignore all that immorality. But at least he's actually doing something. But so there is a lot to discuss and learn about being moral with your money. So again, I don't want to go back to an old question which you asked. We asked about banking. From Islamic perspective, if there was such a thing as banking, this is the question. This is the issue. If there was such a thing as banking, how could it be moral? How could you make or how could you make banking moral from an Islamic perspective? First thing to ask is, what's the purpose of a bank? Because many everyday people, high street people, they think that banking is a place to store your money.
To store your money, yeah.
And to allow you to spend. Not really. And I don't think bankers even make much money from that aspect of their
Holding
market.
interest of
Yeah, they don't make much money. If anything, that's a liability. They have to pay back interest payments to the people. That's actually a bad thing. That's why so many banks are happy to give you nothing now. But
that's why the reserves are nearly zero in banks for the money that you keep in there safely.
Yeah, the actual purpose of banking, I mean, from their perspective, I'm not going to paint their picture. From their own picture, where they paint it, they are facilitating trade. They're helping people. They are helping the movement of money in the economy. So you leave money with us, that's sitting there doing nothing. We use that money to invest. We're facilitating trade. That's the way they model it. So from an Islamic perspective, we will say, okay, that's fine. That moral, that motivation, that's great. I actually support that motivation. I think that's a good motivation. I just think there's a better way of doing it. Okay, how do you do it? But anything you invest in, just be fair. As if you give money to a company or give money to someone and you invest in the income of that company, if the company makes profit, you make profit. If the company loses money, you lose money.
You lose money.
That's it. That's literally it. That's the only difference. If you want to actually adjust, just turn one knob in banking to make banking halal, you could say. All you have to do is say, okay, I'm going to give you this investment or give this loan, but change the word from a loan to investment. That's literally what it is. So here's the money. Here's 2 million, 5 million, $1 billion or pounds for you to do your AI project or to build some road or whatnot. And we're hoping that there'll be a return on this investment based on a certain percentage. You have a share, I have a share in the success. Great. That's literally it. As opposed to, here's the money. Whether you are successful or not,
pay us back with percentage.
Yep. That's it. So that's the main and probably the only thing you could tweak in that. And this is the beauty of Bitcoin, is that with Bitcoin that makes sense.
Yeah.
And the end result, and this is the beautiful thing about this, is that just by changing that practice, you end up changing the mentality. Because I'm now invested in what you're doing, I'm now actually concerned, is it even successful? Is it even a good idea? I don't just throw money at you to expect it, only assessing whether or not I can scrape back that money back in perpetuity. I'm actually invested thinking, okay, look, this bridge you want to build to the middle of nowhere, who's actually going to be using it? I mean, this grid thing you're going to be building, are there any customers there?
What about in China? How many ghost cities have been built in the last decades, which is a skyscraper standing empty?
Yeah, there's so many examples of that, and there's so many secondary order effects that happen. So, for example, I remember when I was set up my business in 2008. I was setting up a teaching.
Great year to set up a business, by the way. Good timing.
In 2008, I was set up it was 2009, but I was set up a business in education. So I wanted to set up an institution where people come and they come to learn. And I managed to secure the lease on the property, and I was building out the property to do something. And my friend, who's an accountant, I was trying to go through things with him, how to get this thing going. And he was saying to me, obviously, if you had a loan, you could do this quicker. I said, yeah, but I don't want to be involved in interest. I want to earn money, and what I have, I can spend that money. So I work from the fruits of my labor. And he said, yeah, I understand that, but your competitors, they're getting loans. So it'll take you about 5 years to get to where you want to, but they can do it in a year. So already you're now seeing this imbalance. Someone who's trying to do an honest business, an honest trade, he's automatically disadvantaged by being fair and moral. And someone who's happy to take the interest, happy to take the money that's not his, it's not even the banks, it's nobody's. They just invented it. he's able to leapfrog ahead of everybody else. So already that's the imbalance in the market, where you have some who are able to rush ahead, although they have no product, and those who have a good idea get nowhere because they're unable to access the funds. And what they call it? They call it the Cantillon effect.
Yeah.
Those who are close to the money printer get
For the most.
And those who are far from it don't get the benefit. So fast forward 10 years after that, I started my business. There was an epiphany moment. There was a moment that I had where I realized that in this 10 years, we're trying to do this honest business, and I'm charging my customers a set amount, and trying to have a fair business. I didn't realize that as I was trying to have this fair amount, which I thought was a fair price in my head, I didn't factor in there how much the money was being eroded.
No.
How much bills were inflated. So all my expenses were creeping upwards, and my income in value was going down effectively.
No.
So over time, I'm being killed. I didn't realize it. So then when you eventually realize, oh wait, I haven't been keeping up with fiat degradation. When I finally adjust the fees, all the students are like, oh, why you put the prices up so high? This is unfair. It wasn't my fault. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm trying to run an honest business here. I didn't realize. So you see here, this is why you see, again, what we discussed earlier on that property, how the price of property has been going up. Prices of education has been going up. Price of healthcare has been going up. What about our wages? Has that been going up?
No.
So again, you've seen this detachment between of what I'm doing and what is necessary. So what happens? What's the byproduct? What ends up happening as a result of that? You have all these crazy ideas about, like, for example, these extreme socialists. Oh, look at the people of money, they're taking advantage of us. Let's have communism back in play. I mean, not even joking. Just the other day, I was in Stratford, in London, and one guy he came up with the communist manifesto. I'm not joking. I'm not making it up. And I want to hear from someone directly. I say, okay, why should I vote for you in the UK election? Why should I vote Communist Party? And what was his argument? Oh, because the rich, they are taking the value of the poor. It's unfair. That money should be for everyone. And as I said to him, I see what you're saying. I get what you're saying, but you're actually punishing the wrong people. I mean, you literally. Why should I be robbed of my property rights? No. I'm not the problem. I'm not the reason why there's this disparagement between what you're getting and value. That's not my fault. It's actually fiat. It's the system of debt. And if you actually look at it, I don't like to oversimplify things or be so reductive. But I do believe that if you was to eliminate interest from the equation, 90% or even more of the problems we have would actually not exist anymore. Because most of the problems we have is due to that.
But the interest is what keeps people by their throats and keeps them slaving away, no?
I mean, yeah, but I mean, the thing is, like I said, it's such a...
Because it's all about control at the end of the day, right? Like the big brother is all about controlling you, no?
I mean, it could be. I'm not denying that's a factor, but again, there's so many second order effects. So, for example, another look at it. When you start scratching the surface, when you pay taxes, what are these taxes for?
You never vote on anything. You don't get a sheet of what you want your tax repayments to go to.
Well, that's the thing.
Someone else decides that.
That's the thing. We think of, my taxes for the roads, the hospitals,
for
schools, the police. But in reality, is that actually the case? No, it's not.
Improved.
Your taxes do one thing and one thing only: service the debt.
No.
The hospitals, the roads, the police, the fire brigade, that's all paid for already through government-issued debt. The government issues the debt, they issue the loan, and they pay all they have to pay for, and then they basically put that debt on you. You are now the one who has to bear the brunt of these decisions are made, of this debt. So that's what I'm saying. I know it might be a bit reductive to say, oh, it's all because of interest. But it's literally all the problems we have, taxation, even though I would even make argument, I'm trying to write a book on this topic, but I would even say the degradation of the home, the family, it actually stems from, at some level, the debt. Bear with me on this. Let me put this idea to you. And it's not to take away the rights of women. I'm not saying that. But why was there a push at a certain time in history for women to work? Is it because they actually cared about women working? Or was it because there was a work shortage? Because the tax base wasn't large enough? We need more people to tax and service this debt. So we've pushed women's rights and women can work and it's good. But actually what we've just done here, we've doubled our workforce. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Women can work. I'm not saying women can't work. That's fine. But what's the result of that? Result of all this debt that we've issued to people and all the inflation of living. When before women worked because they chose to work, because they wanted to work, now they work because they actually have to. Because a husband and a wife is still not enough. So because of that, because both the husband and the wife need to both work, we now have no time to raise children.
Yeah.
So they don't even have children anymore. Maybe one or two, because it's too expensive to even have education. It's too expensive to pay for clothes.
To raise kids.
I can't afford it anymore. So because of that, the demographics gets killed. There's no demographics. There's no children anymore. Now we have all these. What's called population pyramid is moving this way.
Correct. That's what China's having now with their one-child policy.
Well, China was worse because they got to the end result quick. they enforced it at the beginning rather than getting there through inflation and cost of living going up. They just said, "Look, forget this, one child," and now they realize, "Oh no, we messed up." But so there was one person I met. There was one Web3 Web3 seminar. And there was one individual from South Korea. And I thought, great, this is a perfect opportunity to test my theory. Because South Korea has the worst demographics in terms of kids in the world. Their replenishment rate is 0.67 or 61. That basically means they're having 0.67 children per family.
Perfect. My wife actually grew up there, and I've been there a few times, so I've seen that clash of cultures and
it's crazy.
The way it is.
So I asked them, it was a lady, I asked her, because you're from Korea, or South Korea, why is it that South Koreans, in your view, don't have many children? What is it? What is it? Immediately, oh, it's so expensive. I mean, she had other ideas and other things about, she said, I want to enjoy myself and all the rest of it, all that other consumer stuff. But realistically, it came down to the fact of it's expensive.
No.
Same thing and I think that I think these decisions are not consciously made; they're subconsciously made,
and they're programmed.
Yeah, because there's two things. Number one, again, as a society, the government is incentivized to get you to work. I don't really see government saying, "Yeah, we need to have good families." I don't really hear that, really. Maybe you're having some shows and some films and whatnot, but it's not a government-led thing that you want to have.
It's not the mainstream agenda that's being pushed.
No. Actually, in fact, the agenda is the opposite. The agenda is more children is a sign of poverty. Poor countries are poor because they have children.
And a lot of push is for LGBT, right? Because then you can't even reproduce, right?
Well,
not saying anything bad.
That's another discussion. But that's not even part of the equation, because again, what is the main agenda? What is the main motive? What is the main concern of government? Tax base. I mean, that is literally it. It's just we have these things we want to do. We have things we want to do this, we want to do that. But we can't do any of this stuff unless you have a strong tax base. The only way to do that is to incentivize more workers, more high professional workers, more income. So therefore, I don't want to be reductive, but just ask yourself a simple question. If you encourage one side of a family to produce children, you are essentially saying there is no way to get money from them, no income. I mean, as an example, back in 2008, when I first graduated from university, we landed back in the UK because I studied in Saudi. I landed back in the UK, and my wife was obviously looking after the kids, and I was just fresh off the boat, looking for a job. So I went to the job center, and you sign on to get job seekers allowance, and they said to me, in order to get job seekers allowance, both you and your wife have to be looking for a job. I said, yeah, but we have children. And
I said, I wouldn't care.
But basically what they were saying is, yeah, maybe for the first couple of months, but after that, you can pay for a babysitter. So as she wasn't excluded from looking for work. And what that basically means is her role that she was performing of raising the next generation wasn't as important as getting a job. What does that do psychologically to people? You've literally made that all-important role of raising healthy, mentally stable people. That role is not as important as working at McDonald's. Actually, flipping burgers or stacking shelves in Tesco's is way more important than raising a generation. These things filter through. It's not said openly. It's not said to you, it's not important. But in practice, that's the result. Especially if you actually start believing that. If you start believing, I want a job, I want to be independent, as in independent from your whole family. You want to earn your own income because that's more important than everything else. So these are psychological things that I think in the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years is going to really hit them back in the face and really hard when they realize actually we messed up big. And I think Japan is already at that stage. They're realizing already. I mean,
it is crumbling.
Japan's one of the only countries in the world, not one of the only country in the world that adult diapers outsell baby diapers. I mean, that's crazy, man. That's crazy. But in summary, again, not to be reductive, but I challenge anyone to think, give me an example of one thing that is so as impactful on society as just the issue of interest. It is so destructive that a lot of people haven't really quantified that yet. So that's why I Bitcoin.
Well, I was gonna say if you're writing that book, maybe as a title suggestion, you should have it "Fix the Interest, Fix the World," right? As people say, fix the money, fix the world. It's fix the interest, right? And then the world would be a lot much better.
One of the chapters I'm working on as an idea. I'm still exploring if the data backs up the idea. Is the connection between interest and the demographic situation, as in, is there a correlation between the increase of the debt burden on society and a decrease on the population? On decrease in having children.
Birth rate.
Is there a correlation? Because again, we often think of poorer countries of having lots of children and more rich countries having less. So poor countries having more and those having less. And they attribute that to poverty. But maybe it could be just the fact that they don't have access to debt.
What?
As in, these poor countries, they have a lower debt burden. And there's an interesting thing I saw also on Instagram the other day. There's one meme. Well, it's kind of like a meme, but it's like a video where one guy, he said he's from Mexico. And he mentioned that, yes, in Mexico, we do receive less wages than someone in New York. But our cost of living is way less.
But we get to keep more of it.
At the end of it. So it's not actually the amount you get, it's how much you have in the end of it. So yes, maybe I actually get $1 a day. Because you often hear that, this country, they only get like $1 a day.
Yeah, but the cost of living is 2 cents, right? Then whatever. Exactly, I don't mind it. I'd rather get $1 and cost of living a few cents than be making 10,000 and my spending is 8,000, right?
Exactly. So that's one of my research points. Maybe if anyone here is listening can ask the same question, but I think these are the questions that we need to ask, and these are the things that I think Bitcoin will eventually force people to think about, especially if more people start. For example, because again, one of the reasons why Bitcoin has properties which is in line with that ethos. Because there's no way to issue Bitcoin through keystrokes.
No.
There's only one way of getting it, and that's through working for it. Now, we will have a dual system, Bitcoin and fiat. That would exist for many, many decades to come. But as more and more people start to value Bitcoin and start saving in Bitcoin, and maybe even start asking to be paid in Bitcoin,
Correct.
maybe that will change their mindset. Rather than the mindset of, I just want to have money and get yield. They start thinking,
I want to get money and save it.
Yeah, not just that. They start thinking, how can I earn money? What can I do to actually earn money? Either I earn it through doing something, or I earn it through giving my money to someone else for them to do something. Investment. There's only two ways of getting money. Either giving money to someone who's productive to use it to make money, or through working myself. If that mindset changes, I think a lot of things will change. I think a lot of things will change for the better. I'm not saying we're silver bullet for everything, but I do think that a few things will be fixed.
It's definitely, I mean, the value for value concept, right? You're providing value, you're getting value back, which in the current system we don't have. Like if we look at these bankers and these brokers, they're doing nothing. They're essentially just robbing people and getting paid ridiculous amounts for just kind of, being the modern day magicians, kind of putting this illusion on and just sucking away all this money and energy. But in the Bitcoin world, if you're not putting in your work and if you're not doing something for it, don't be expecting to get anything back. And I definitely think, and the other aspect that I personally love about Bitcoin is the more you study it and the deeper you go down the rabbit hole, you change your perspective from high time preference to low time preference. You start considering saving things and questioning, should I get that £8 Starbucks venti coffee, or maybe I'll make some instant coffee at home, or should I get this latest iPhone, or maybe this iPhone's pretty good, it's only 1-2 years old. This whole consumerism trend kind of starts to crack, which I think that putting the burden on the world and all this pollution that we have and all this electrical waste that's happening, it's due to the consumerism of produce more, sell more. But it's all garbage. And on a Bitcoin mindset, you kind of start really questioning what you want to spend on and saving more, because the more you can save today, the better your future is tomorrow. But on the fiat system, it's kind of the more you have today, the quicker you spend it, the more you get back. Because if you're keeping in your bank account as you had your epiphany 10 years later, your purchasing power drops and everything else goes the opposite way. So it kind of disincentivizes of savings, which
I think that's one of the most significant and most impactful things I think that Saifedean in his Bitcoin said. That's what he brought to the surface, the idea of time preference.
Yeah.
And this is what I saying about the issue of the interest and how our system is interest based, or debt based, I should say, is that shift in time preference.
Yeah.
Because of that shift, it impacts everything down to the psychological level, how we think about it. Having children, building a family is a long time preference thinking.
Yeah.
If you become a short time preference thinking person, it will impact everything you do, from family building, from business. I mean, for example, I hear many people say, I've many people use these YouTube videos about making business, making money. They say things like, have your idea, develop the business, get to a certain level, and then have your exit strategy. Exit strategy just means that basically that for me that's basically saying short-term thinking.
You're in, out.
Literally,
like pure casino. Out. I go in, I get my 10 grand, I'm out of here. I'm not losing them.
In, money, out. In, money. That's literally short-term preference. I mean, I would argue, if you had the capacity to make a functioning business that's actually a good business, why would you leave it? Why would you exit? That's your cash cow. You've proven you have the skills and the knowledge to make something useful. But what this is telling me, though, is, and what it's teaching the people actually, is make a business that's only good enough in the short term and exit before it collapses. No, that's true. Literally, why else would you exit unless you predict that maybe in a year, 2 years, it's going to be not what it is? So you want to exit at the peak. Basically, shitcoinism.
Yeah.
I want to get into the shitcoin. As soon as the pump, I'm
out. But it's also that's if you're lucky, Muaawiyah, right? Most businesses fail. So this whole concept, and I love that you mentioned these kind of business guru influencers. In most cases, they're in their early 20s. Like, what successful business exits have they even pulled? Like, they're doing their own, spoof shambo of trying to teach
is
and influence
another good thing
people.
as well about the Bitcoin way of thinking is that when it comes to business, the idea in the fiat world is that fast churn, do something, get the money in, because it's all about tax bases. It's all about tax base, increasing tax base. Even if the idea isn't really a good idea, get the funding, get it done, happens. Whereas in a society whereby I'm using my own capital, my own saving, or I'm borrowing money from someone else who is his saving, his capital, you start making different decisions.
Yeah. Your risk ratios is vastly different.
I always say to people, the easiest way to demonstrate that is with property. If you saw a property, a nice house, big house, you love the house, and it cost you $1 million, it's an expensive house, but it's a good house. I like the house. If I said to you, bruv, I'm going to give you this £1 million cash as a gift, not a loan, as a gift. You can buy it as you want. Here's the money. Guaranteed, when it comes to buying that house, you were like, you know what? I'll buy a cheaper house and keep half.
I'll buy some Bitcoin. I'll hedge.
Or buy some Bitcoin. Because what that's all the money you have. You have £1 million and a house £1 million. That's all the money you have. Your thinking is, if I spend it on this house, I have no more money left.
I've got nothing.
Okay, let me change the story. So let's just change scenario. You want the house? Great. I give you a loan. So you pay me back in installments, £500 a month.
For the next 30 years.
You're buying a house. You're buying a house. Because you're not thinking about spending £1 million for the house. You're only thinking about spending £500. That's all you're thinking about. I can pay £500 a month. That's all I'm paying. That's the cost of the house. So the point is the method, the process of making a decision is completely changed. You've gone from, I'm buying a house because it's only £500 to, no way, I'm going to buy a cheaper house and keep the money. So by having this mindset of spending earning first and then spending what you have, you think completely different. Completely different. So this whole short-term preference, long-term preference is completely different. Same thing with relationships. Same thing with business. I mean, again, with relationships, if everything's about the quick fix, short-term preference, I want to do the thing now. Who cares about everything? I will sleep with whoever. I will do whatever with whoever. I don't really care because it's all about the now.
Yeah.
I mean, there was this message I saw on Twitter just the other day. The guy said, replying in the tweet below, what's better than sex? So I replied to him, the children it produces. Because no one thinks about it that way. No one thinks that sex is about making children. It's about building something. It's all about the immediate, and that's it. Whereas no one actually thinks, actually, there is actually something way better than that 5-10 minutes you had. The children you have, the memories you have, the family you've built,
the legacy you leave behind. Like, after you're gone, there's nothing left.
Exactly, nothing. And if that's the case, you now have to choose who you're doing that with. Is she even a good mother? Is she someone I want to build something with? Is she worth my time?
It might not be that girl on a Friday night that you decided to take back home.
I mean, I feel frightened, terrified to ask the question: how many children were born from that one night you met that one person, and I didn't care about her, and she turned to be the worst person on earth? But lo and behold, here she is anyway, and here now we have children, and now I have to deal with it. I have to deal with all that craziness, and I mean, there's so many second order effects. Now you've destroyed the family, and you've destroyed the family unit. Now men don't even want to get married anymore. Why would I get married? And most of my money goes in divorce. I've paid,
and you've ruined future generations. Those kids who they see how the relationship is with mama and papa, like they don't want to have kids either. So
you've just and then again, like you
compounded.
said, we're seeing it happen already. We're seeing in real time the destruction of everything, all from short-time preference thinking. That's kind of, I think that's kind of why throughout history, all religions almost have always respected the family. They've always respected the marriage, because they've also understood at some level, we're trying to build something here. It's only with fiat now, whereby, you know, I mean, again, I don't want to draw too much parallels. Maybe I could be wrong, but is it a coincidence how the sexual revolution of the 70s happened when we depegged the dollar from the gold? I mean, maybe there's a connection here. I don't know. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Why is it that children outside of wedlock happen to somehow hockey stick at that moment when fiat became a thing? Maybe I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but there just seems to be some things that happen to correlate. And again, I'm not. You could tell me if I'm wrong or right, but I've seen again a common theme with Bitcoiners. I'm not talking about people who have Bitcoin. I'm talking about Bitcoiners, maxis. I'm seeing many of them talk about building families,
correct,
eating healthily, building legacies. How did that happen? Is it because they're all Muslim and they all follow the Islam? No. It's because there's something here about the system they're trying to adopt, which is changing them here.
The paradigm shift happens.
It's happening.
Yeah.
So that's why Bitcoin. There's so much to speak and so much to say, but that's kind of why Bitcoin, because it just feeds in that, and obviously we have the extra benefit of it being censorship resistant as a benefit. You could say that's the main point of Bitcoin. You have instant payments across borders. I can now send money back home for free for little to no
Lightning for free.
Lightning for free, but you know, I mean, there's so many second order effects of Bitcoin that we have,
and the finite unit, which is like the only asset in the digital or physical realm that's actually scarce. There's nothing, because real estate, you can always build more houses. Land, you can build artificial land like we see all over the world, but like there's nothing physically that's scarce. Gold, I mean, we mine more of it.
In fairness, Bitcoin is scarce, is ultimately scarce, but it can be technically inflated. And what I mean by that is, I don't mean long term. I mean,
you mean subdividing more than 100 million sats?
Basically, lending. Because at the end of the day, unfortunately, this is reality. As much as I hate it, there are many companies that are building debt-based models using Bitcoin. It's happening. And I mean, what was the whole Celsius thing and the whole FTX thing? That was all basically inflating Bitcoin. I mean, what was the issue about FTX? That I think that most of the Bitcoin...
Well, it wasn't even there. They weren't holding it. They were holding a tiny fraction of it.
Literally, the bull market of 2021 was handicapped because people were buying Bitcoin that didn't exist. So it can technically happen, but the benefit of Bitcoin...
Well, just like people in Wall Street are today, right? Like there's so many ETFs, and I think there's only one ETF provider that gave their public address. Everybody else, including BlackRock, are supposedly buying Bitcoin, but I haven't seen I think there's a lot of paper Bitcoin going around.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it still can happen to some degree, but I think the main difference of Bitcoin, which is not the case with gold, is that because it has an absolute finite amount, it eventually the Ponzi or the smoke
will
surface quicker. We'll find out about it earlier, which can't be the case with fiat. Fiat, I can always just keep on rolling the thing down the line. I can always roll the rock down the hill. But with fiat, with Bitcoin, at least as it seems, as long as we can try it and push self-custody and push for people to have it, and because of the ease of self-custody, I think that will in the system itself, it will kind of mitigate and remove that, because that was the issue of gold. This is one of the things that I always tell gold bugs. I love to kind of mention to them, because they understand the problems of fiat, but they're not honest about the problems of gold. Gold,
you can't store it at home. Well, you can, but you're not going to be storing under your mattress, are you?
There is that, but also fiat was born of gold. Because fiat has solved problems that gold had, which is long distance settlement. So because of that, fiat was actually a solution, partly, to the gold problem that Bitcoin doesn't have. So Bitcoin has the benefits of gold and the benefits of fiat. So it has the benefits of fiat without the liabilities or without the downside of fiat, and the benefit of gold without the downside of gold. So I think over time, when people realize this and the shift occurs, and I think specifically when we have more tools, I think if you have more tools that prevents loss of coin, that prevents theft of coin, that makes it easier to store your coin without having to memorize or write down and store these 12 words. As long as we get better systems, then I think the idea of custody of Bitcoin will become less and less and less. I think that will ultimately happen.
I think this trickles down through education, because at the end of the day, like, remembering 12 words is not that hard. It's just people are too lazy, because everything, they live in a service-based economy. Everything's just like at the fingertips. Like, I don't need to remember nothing.
Yeah, I do. That is true, but I mean, again,
and responsibility. People should be more responsible, which they aren't.
I agree, and I'm actually in Bitcoin, but I do believe that there are still inherent problems with Bitcoin, because there is no one solution. Like I said, there's no one solution for everything.
Of course.
And even 12 words, think about it, 12 words was actually a solution to the original problem, because before you actually had one private key and one public key.
No.
The 12 words was allowed you to have millions of public keys and private keys. So that actually was a solution. But even 12 words is technically still a friction point. I mean, it's not a friction point for you and me, but it is for my mum, it is for my grandmother, it is for my grandfather, it is for many people. I mean, you'd be surprised that there are people on planet Earth who struggle even with the bank. Struggle even with...
what's the PIN number? And it's like 4 digits.
I mean, it's crazy. When I was in Saudi studying back in the noughties, I have a degree in Islamic law. So I was studying, I did 7 years in Medina, getting a degree in Islamic law. When I was there, I was using the ATM like you do. And as I turned around to leave, because like a little booth, there was an old guy there. And he says to me, "Here's my card. Could you help me get some money out?" I'm like, "Sure, that's fine, uncle." Put the card in and stuff. Because I assumed he couldn't read. That's fine. And he goes, "No, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. Could you help me?" I said, "Okay." I put the card in for him, and I said to him, "Yeah, put your pin in." I literally, I don't have no idea. I can tell you my pin, but I don't know how to use it. So he told me his pin. I had to put the pin in. He said, he told me the amount. Put the amount. He got his money, he got his card, and he left. That's the level of that people still exist. So someone like that is not memorizing 12 words. He has no idea about private keys, public keys, scanning QR codes. None of that. He's not. So I still think we have a ways to go to make it a case whereby anyone can safely use their Bitcoin without having to add extra friction and points in storage, recovery, and the rest of it. We're not there yet. I don't have a solution. You don't have a solution. We're still working on it. But there are still ways to improve it. But what Bitcoin has solved, it's enough to remove the need for fiat. That is definitely the case. It's enough to remove the need for fiat. So again, the same thing with the issue of the UTXO situation. There's not enough UTXOs for everyone. That's the problem that needs to be solved. But I do believe that there are solutions that have yet to be discovered. We
just need time. We need time and builders.
Just need
patience.
Just need time, builders. And this is why I'm always encouraging people to don't waste your time on shitcoins. Pump this one, yield that one. You're wasting your time. What you need to be doing is fixing. I guarantee, if you fix these problems, guaranteed you're going to be
rewarded much more than pumping, dumping all day.
Much more than that yield. Fix these problems. This is why I think it brings back to the issue of trade, fair trade. If you look at what is the basis of fair trade? It's literally just fixing people's problems.
No.
That's all it is. Every trade is about solving someone's problem. I need food. I need meat. I need this. That's my problem. Fix it for me. Here's your chickens. Here's your sofa. Here's the
spices.
Home. Here's your solution. Pay me, reward me for me fixing your problem. That's all it is. Fix my problem. If everyone has that mindset of, I want to earn money today. What problems can I solve? Imagine 8 billion people trying to solve problems. That's amazing. That is an economy you want. Not 8 million people trying to figure a way to pay back government debt. That's not an economy you want. You want an economy of people who have their mind is, what problems can I solve today? So
focus on fixing problems. I like that.
Yeah,
that's a nice way to kind of sum up what was discussed on this episode, because we touched upon a lot of interesting points, but bringing it back to this value for value concept, give more than you take, which is the opposite that's currently happening in the legacy system, and look for problems to solve. Because I totally agree with you. I mean, already what's been achieved in 15 years, it's fascinating. Bitcoin becoming the eighth largest asset class in the world just in 15 years. Imagine what's going to happen in the next 10, 20, 30 years, but there's still so much to build. And we do have these layer twos, and to the example that you talked with the elderly man, like with elderly people, they can just have a lightning, solution where there's no saving nothing. You just boop, put the QR code, scan here, scan there. That's that, there's no saving, no nothing. But still, there's a lot of things to be built on and improved. And I think, as you said, like focusing your attention, your work, and really putting in the blood, sweat, and tears to building these solutions, you're going to be rewarded so much more, and you're going to live a much more fulfilling life than trying to catch the next pump and dump on a shitcoin. And essentially, what good does it bring? You're essentially stealing away once again from other people that are vulnerable, thinking this token's going to go to the moon, but actually it's not going anywhere. It's going in and out with a quick exit strategy, as we discussed.
Yeah. I mean, just so you mentioned this last point here. You mentioned about the issue of Bitcoin and what's achieved. I remember there's a website, if anyone wants to check it out, it's called Fiat Market Cap.
Fiat Market Cap.
Yeah, it was.
I haven't heard of that one.
A meme of Coin Market Cap. So basically, it's just all the fiat currencies with Bitcoin in a market cap, and Bitcoin is already the 14th largest in value market cap in the world, and that's only at current valuations. So at the end of this cycle, it will probably be in the top 10. For the next cycle, probably in the next what's it called? It won't be very difficult, very long before Bitcoin's encompassed and sucked in all value. And at that point, you will have an actual absolute measure of value, a global measure of value. Imagine that. Imagine
a unit of account, an
actual unit of account. I can assess this thing is worth this amount of global value on planet Earth. That is amazing. But hopefully you'll get there in my lifetime.
We will do. As you said, you're only 42 years young. I'm 31 years young. We've got a long life ahead of us, and
Inshallah.
We might not see that where the end is, but definitely we're part of the process. We're building, trying to wake up people, help them out, and make a better world altogether. Because in Bitcoin, if you help another person in the space, you're winning. It's a win-win. It's a 1+2, right? It's someone wins, someone loses, as we currently have.
Definitely.
But Muaawiyah, it's been amazing having you on. I really enjoyed this conversation. I had some idea of what Islamic, law and finance was, but I didn't really get the main gist of it. And from here on, it makes a lot of sense. And if only more people would listen to this, and especially the people in Western finance and politics, just to have a little bit of food for thought on how to fix these problems, which are essentially to a certain extent unsolvable. There's always a way, and interest is a great part to start it with.
I think just one thing.
Sure.
I think one of the biggest issues here is that because of the word Islamic finance, the first word throws everyone off. It's Islam is a religious thing. That's why I kind of in my I did a presentation at the Bitcoin Oasis in the Dubai conference, and I mentioned if you want to rename it, you can call it moral finance, you can call it ethical finance. It makes you happier. But all it is I would say, I think you probably agree with me. All I would say is that it's a moral framework that everyone already agrees to. It's like, how is it anything that's unusual? It's not like I've said something that's strange to you. It's more like, that makes sense. It's something that everyone would fundamentally agree to. It's just that some people choose the immoral way because you can make money from it. That's just what it is.
Well, greediness, eh?
Thanks for having me
Greediness.
around. It is literally greediness.
It's been awesome having you on. Where can we send our listeners to follow you and all the great work that you're doing? What would be the
Yeah,
best?
so I mean, I'm on Twitter as usual. My Twitter handle is C_hash review. That was my Twitter handle, and essentially, I'm trying to build something on Bitcoin in my website called MetaMedina
Okay.
.com. Which is I'm trying to build some kind of system marketplace on Bitcoin. So that's kind of where you kind of find. But I'm around. I'm around.
Are you a Noster or not yet?
I'm on Noster. My Noster name is 128ZZ1025581.
Check the show notes. We'll put in the show notes. No need to put out the whole NPub.
I'm only joking. I don't memorize it. I'll just say that's my Noster address. Some long number. But yeah,
Well,
I don't really actually use it often, but I wish I did because Twitter is just too.
It's dying. Twitter's like fiat. It's slowly it's on a lifeline. And on Noster, I was at BTC Prague 2 weeks ago, and and it was actually the first place that had a Noster booth, and it was the most vibrant booth there was close to 90 booths at the expo, and like Noster booth, it was just fire, and like we were just like exchanging ideas and discussing things, what to do. And like today, like since leaving the conference, I use Noster much more than my X or Twitter. So yeah, I'm definitely pushing everyone. And this is my new like question to every guest. It's like, are you a Noster? Like trying to push a little bit on the Noster aspect, because
I am. It's just
we
that
want to take data into our own hands.
I mean, unfortunately, the only problem with Noster, unfortunately for me, is that all you could say my target audience,
Yeah.
they're either not Bitcoiners or not Noster. So
True.
if you're a Bitcoiner, it's perfect. All the Bitcoiners are there, all there. But
True.
It's our own little mini island in cyberspace.
We need to take the time. But awesome, man. Thanks once again for coming on. I'd love to have you back in the future, because our Bitcoin journeys are always growing and expanding, and you know the world's changing at lightning speeds. So yeah, thanks again, and I look forward to having you back in the show in the future.
Thanks for having me. Take care. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, I would highly appreciate it if you could boost, rate, review, and subscribe on the podcast platform of your choice. It would greatly help us spread these incredible stories and the message of Bitcoin freedom. Also, feel free to reach out to me and follow our social media accounts on X, Noster, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. I appreciate all of your support, and make sure to tune in next Thursday for the next episode. Thanks for listening, and remember to stack sats and stay humble.